Round 18, last round of consistently drafted guys. And of course, there's a bit of flux with the guys who are in here, but I just took underdogs, last 12 drafted guys. So we had Devin Duvernay, Marcus Mariota, Joshua Kelly, David Bell, Zach Moss, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Kenny Pickett, Zach Wilson, Kendrick Bourne, Dearness Johnson, Jeff Wilson, and Randall Cobb. So here, I mean, this is real dart throw territory. If you're getting a positive advance rate out of anyone here, you're doing good. You can see that there's a few players in that zone. Then in terms of fantasy points over expected, even there we got some, but the quarterbacks really stunk it up a lot. Kenny Pickett had a 1.7% touchdown rate, which was the league worst. No games with 2 passing touchdowns, and he could be a bit of a value going into 2023. Are you in on this Steelers offense to make a step forward?
I will be in on I'll be in on the weapons, not necessarily the quarterback. This reminds me very much of my take that I had with Trey Lance. Hey, I like the weapons. I don't know if I like the quarterback too much because I don't think he's gonna consistently do either or. The one upside is that we know that Pickett's not really a running guy, so we know that he's just gonna pass the ball a lot. What does that mean? I'm just gonna look for value. I will take Pickens. I'll take Deontay. I'll take Najee Harris. I'll take Pat Freiermuth, but I'm not going to stack the quarterback. And I think that sounds weird for a lot of people, but these one-off weapons are amazing. And I look at like Brandon Ayuk as a prime example of I just took the weapon. I don't need to take the team. Yeah. So I think that if you fall in love with one of those guys, take the weapon, don't take the quarterback. I don't see much upside. This guy is not a 300-yard guy. That's not as far as I can see.
Yeah, I think that's part of a really good, bigger best ball question that we can talk about at some point where it's, stacking players simply because they're from the same team doesn't always have that upside. I mean, Zach Wilson, we saw Garrett Wilson have a great season, but Zach Wilson absolutely stunk. Like QB 37, 30% completion rate when pressured, worst PFF grade of any starting quarterback, and the 7th worst passing EPA. And it was just a case where I don't think anybody necessarily expected him to regress quite so heavily. I think the reason his ADP was quite this low was because he was coming into the season injured. Before that, we were taking him several rounds earlier. And it felt like, okay, there are enough offensive weapons around him that maybe he can be all right. But beyond all else, he lost the dressing room and had an absolute stinker of the season. And now it'd just be a surprise if he's ever really drafted again.
I like the loss of dressing room. I think that's my new term for that now. I'm going to stick with that forever. That's the best that you can ever say. I mean, Zach Wilson just proved that he wasn't good. This is the complete opposite of the Sam Darnold, right? When Sam Darnold didn't have any weapons, didn't have a line, didn't have a running back. I think he's done. I think that he's done. I think that but anyone that took Zach Wilson, came into Felix, I love you, man. I know he took a lot of Zach Wilson. I think it's a smart move. Let's be real, right? Corey Davis was his worst receiver on that offense. Coming into the year, that was your wide receiver 3. That is amazing, right? People talk about the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Corey Davis is better, I think, for fantasy and probably even in real life than what Tyler Boyd does. So you got Corey Davis as your wide receiver 3. You got Breece Hall. You got, their other running back, Michael Carter. Like, you got all these guys. It's surprising that he didn't perform well. And that just shows that it doesn't always happen. Year 2, you don't actually get better. But anyone that drafted him, I don't blame him. That offense on paper looked immaculate.
Yeah, and at given cost where we were closing value of like looking at round 18, it's just
15 to 18 would have mattered. I think this is the Jared Goff situation. Hey, your line's a little bit better. You have great weapons. I hope you could throw 300-yard games.
And we were looking at this, okay, well, Joe Flacco was going to start the season. There were plenty of upside arguments where Zach Wilson came in. And even if his play was as bad as it was, I strongly believe that if he hadn't have completely lost faith of the coaches and the players around him, they would have kept playing him simply because of where his draft capital was. And he could have easily kept giving you a few usable weeks. One player who was, more cheerful things that I'd like to say, Jeff Wilson Jr., 9 top 30 performances, and 4 of those came with the 49ers before he was traded to the Dolphins. Looking back now, it feels like people expected too much from Tyrion Davis Price, who the word throughout camp was that he wasn't particularly high up on the depth chart. And Jeff Wilson was the player who we should have been drafting higher. As a Dolphins fan, how do you feel about Jeff Wilson?
Funny. So I'm in San Francisco. You guys know this. The funny thing about him from the San Francisco side, they love Jeff Wilson Jr. They liked him more than TDB. And anyone that liked Elijah Mitchell knew that Elijah Mitchell has an injury of history, a history of being injured. Jeff Wilson Jr. was a great pick, no matter what happened. Whether he went to the Dolphins, which we cannot predict, but from that side of things, he was great. You already knew that he was going to have a role on the 49ers. And then he went to the Dolphins, same thing. He was going to have a role there. I think next year he's going to go underpriced. He should be a guy that's between round 10s to 12. As long as we don't draft like somebody in the first 2 rounds, I think he's around 10 to 12 guy. And I know he's going to be great. 9 top 30 performances, for the 49ers. That's amazing. That's as good as it gets. And he's young. He's way younger than Raheem Mostert.
Yeah,
and they trust him more than they trust Mostert a lot. But when Jeff Wilson came there, he took the job almost immediately.
And he's an explosive player. I like taking bets on explosive players.